Welcome back everyone to episode 3 this time of our CSRD series. And this time we're going to focus on how we actually can prepare for the CSRD. So let's remind ourselves. We of course had on the top of the series we were discussing what is the CSRD. Then we discussed what actually the CSRD matters to me. And now we're going to actually get to the most important point, which we as Nextdoor Projects of course want to recommend, is how you actually can prepare for this. And I want to have all your clear attention today, because again we're going to go through these steps together with you. But you need to be mindful that we see, unfortunately, in the market a lot of these steps being missed or actually lightly being touched and actually being forgotten. So that's why these steps that I'm going to tell you today are absolutely essential for you to follow. Because again, the FRAG have set up the CSRD, which is a huge piece of 300 pages, and I'm even excluding the 300 pages of the appendix. Please be mindful to be really following these steps carefully, because these steps will help you to get compliant. Because as we said in the previous series, it's going to take you a lot of time to set this up, with or without help, but important for you to set this up correctly. So let's go through the steps. Step 1 really starts by setting the ground with your auditor and your consultant, or actually your team. So 1 is really setting up your CSRD team and getting your auditor involved in order to see, of course, who's going to be your auditor. Why I'm saying this is that unfortunately a lot of local audit firms actually don't have the capacity to actually support you with the CSRD, or in other words, get you the stamp of approval. The other part is actually finding the right help internally. Do you have the right people that actually can help you on the CSRD, or do you need to hire actually an external consultant? Please be aware to have the necessary help to go through these different steps. Second of all, when everything, the baseline and everything, the base is set in place, go towards actually setting the scoping. And this comes back to the CFO, where we need, of course, your audit team is to see from an organizational and legal perspective which entities need to comply with CSRD. We see some companies that have several, and sometimes one, which is then the holding, and then you do, of course, your double materiality on that level. The next step is, and now we get actually to the serious stuff, we're going to get to the double materiality assessment. And that part, I want to make sure that you don't underestimate that part. This is one of the most difficult parts and the lengthy parts of the CSRD. Trust me, we're going through hundreds of these DMAs at the moment with Nextdoor Projects. This is the moment where we need your attention and where we need very much to be aware of what we're going through. Because this will define at the end, this double materiality assessment, which KPIs you will need to report upon. We're going to go from 2,000 to approximately 500 to 300 data points, which, please don't be scared, only 70% is qualitative and 30% is quantitative. So please be aware of that. The next step of the journey is, of course, the gap analysis, and this is optional. We would, as Nextdoor Project, recommend at any stage to do that gap analysis. Why? Because you will need to make a plan for 2029, which data points need to be measured by 2026, which ones by 2027, and by 2029. You have some exceptions, yes, but you need to make yourself aware if looking at your competitors, if a competitor is going to measure scope 3 emissions and you are not, are you going to be okay by not measuring it? Because then, of course, in the ratings, you will be, of course, marked as not measuring. So I think you need to really be mindful of that next step very carefully. Because the next step is the implementation. And there's where we're going to set your governance structure. We're going to start measuring, and we're going to start, of course, creating a whole baseline with your whole CSRD team. And this time it's not just your core team, it's the whole company, because you will need to involve everyone to get the data points. So everybody will have a certain involvement in this journey. From the implementation, we get to the summary. And the summary is that management report that CFOs have been getting in the past will need to get to a sustainability report. In a management report from before was rather small, and now it's going to extend, because all these data points that you've defined in your double materiality assessment will need to be, of course, put on that list. And in that list, you will need to, of course, tell on every single line why you've measured it or why you have not measured it. Because your double materiality assessment, you still have a choice to extend some data points, yes or no. So please be mindful that this is a strategic decision that you need to make on what you measure and what you don't measure. Last but not least, when we have our management report, we're going to get into the digital tagging. That part is still in the books and still in the works at the moment, because we still need to see where the digital tagging will be lying and how we're going to actually put that into function. But please be aware that that last step is there. And when we are on the digital tagging, then of course you hand over it to the auditor, who is going to actually digital tag and actually sign off on that report, and then you're done. So please be mindful. It is a very large exercise. Please be mindful that have the right people, the right resources, and the right mindsets there in order to get through that journey. But please be aware, like I said in episode 1 and 2, this is a journey that actually will set the base way further and actually is going to make you future-proof for the future. Thank you very much.